Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sofia Azevedo, and this is my colleague Marta Candeias. We are the Portuguese NMP National Contact Points, and as part of NMP National Contact Points European Network, the NMP team, which is funded by the European Commission, we are organizing the 8th virtual event for clients. We have already organized other 7 about technology readiness levels, business plans, synergies with other funding mechanisms, policy mix, partner search tool, Horizon 2020 prizes, and EMIRI. Today's virtual event for clients is about the just published work program for nanotechnologies, advanced materials, biotechnologies, and advanced manufacturing. Yanis Falkamanis, Industrial Technologies Directorate, DG Research and Innovation, European Commission, will make a brief presentation about the work program. This event will take around 1 hour, and it will consist of a presentation followed by a questions and answers session. So please feel free to use the chat box during the presentation and ask any question that you may have related with the work program. This event will be recorded, and along with the presentation and the answers, it will be published on the NMP team website. Without any further delays, let us start our event. Good afternoon, Yanis. Thank you again for being available to present the work program. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much indeed, Marta, Cecilia, and welcome to our listeners today, to a grey day in Brussels, I'm afraid. I'm going to give you a presentation, which is the presentation which maybe some of you have already seen, but which is the standard presentation on the new work program for NMBP, Nanomaterials, Advanced Manufacturing, and Advanced Materials. And it's a new style of work program. Before I go into the work program, I'm going to give you, nevertheless, a bit of an introduction into the policy context. Perhaps to those of you who were in the Information Day in Brussels just recently might have already actually seen some of this, seen the new focus we put on policy context. This is very important to us. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time at the beginning on policy context. And then I'm going to go into the new style of work program and show you a little bit what that means and characterize it. I understand that afterwards we will go into the Q&A, which is pre-planned. But of course, if there is a mechanism, will be in the hands of Marta and Cecilia, I think, to actually ask questions which are sent in online, I'm very happy to do it like that too. So the new work program has just been published. You're listening to one of the few first presentations on the program. Next slide, please. The policy context, which we have already for the whole of Horizon 2020, these aims have not really shifted very much. You've seen the slides before: boosting jobs, digital single market, the single market itself, of course, at the same time, energy union, Europe a stronger actor. These aims of the Commission are unwavering, I would say, and they're fulfilled not just by the R&I program, but also by other instruments such as FC, and of course the package of policies which the European Union brings to the table. Commissioner Moedas' priorities, developed through the last couple of years, are towards openness. We need to undertake science in an open way, sharing, as you'll see later on, data from research and experiments. We need to be open in our innovation. Our collaborative model in the EU programs, the R&D programs, already fulfill this requirement, really, because all of the contracts which you sign and which you're familiar with actually take you to an open model, a model of sharing your innovations with each other. And finally, open to the world. We do need, and this counts for NMBP, I would say very strongly, as well as to the others, because so far we have had a number of very interesting international collaborations, but we do need to build on this. Next slide, please. The Context, I'm sure you'll know many of these numbers. EU manufacturing is 64% of private R&D investment, so a lot of money, or private money, going into manufacturing R&D. And by the way, this is not just trying to save the situation from jobs abroad, but actually many jobs are being repatriated. If we look at the Americans, Nike, moving textile jobs to Asia and now moving them back home with automated factories. So lots and lots of scope for private R&D investment also in Europe, Western countries today. 2.1 million enterprises, 32 million jobs, turnover number 7,000 trillion. Is that 7,000 trillion? That would be about right. And manufacturing added value to 2,130 trillion. So we're looking at very large world scale numbers in our manufacturing industry. Next slide, please. What are the challenges? Fast-growing competition in Asia especially, but also in America. Investments outside the EU, more and more, if you like, the global value chain idea where you have to go for some of your expertise, but also some of your operations outside the EU and then bring it home, or the other way around. It is a more and more global world. EU, we have good numbers in patents. We are less good at seeing the way that R&D actually goes into business concepts. We, if you look at the rate of upscaling of small enterprises, startup enterprises in the US, there is a much better record than there is over here. Taking care of the SMEs, the value chains, the ecosystem, I'll be speaking about that in the context of the work program. Access to financing, you know that issue, combining with other parts of the program which are specialized in that. Keeping and developing skills and competencies, you'll see, I think at least one, maybe there's more. I'll have to go back. We only just put the work program together, so I don't know it all by heart. Keeping and developing skills, at least one topic specifically addressing skills. And here is the challenge in a nutshell: how to make industry invest and create jobs in Europe. Next slide, please. And some numbers around this same thing. You can see, I won't spend time talking through this, but you can, at a glance, I think, see the R&D performance on the left and look at the share we have in the world today, underpinning the statements I just made. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. The key enabling technologies, that's the core idea of having investment straight into technology and assuming that it will be, if you like, the underpinning of future products and processes in industry. The classical definition is 6 strategic technologies, and nanotech, advanced materials, biotechnology, advanced manufacturing are 4 of these. That's where you are now. I think you know this. And the KET strategy as a policy strategy was established through a number of documents. You can see them listed below. Next slide, please. Nmbp in Horizon 2020, I think most of you will know this. I won't talk to it, but I'm very happy to answer questions on it. You know that there is a pillar called industrial leadership, and that has a particular proportion of the budget, the indicative budget in the middle, 16.5, and Nmbp is 3.8. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. R&D and innovation with a strong industrial dimension. So this is a characterization. Again, I won't go through this in detail, but you can see that we're covering a wide range of technology readiness levels, up to 7. And some of the ideas coming out of the new work program could even perhaps take us into TRL8, but that's to be seen. Next slide, please. The contractual public-private partnerships, I assume that quite a number of you listening will either be part of or have had contacts with the Factory of the Future, SPIRE, Sustainable Process Industries for Resource Efficiency, and the Energy Efficient Buildings PPPs, which are with us, or perhaps with some of the others like green vehicles. So I think you know the model, but just to recap, industry should be leading in its strategy, defining the roadmaps. The budget means that there's an envelope with which to work with for the roadmap, focused on enabling industrial technologies, at least until now. Some demonstration, of course, looked for and welcome. SME-friendly instruments, and you'll see more of that coming in, especially with the test beds in the new work program. Roadmaps with large stakeholder participation, objectives set by the roadmaps, very important, and installed in and called for through open Horizon 2020 calls, exactly in the way that this call is also structured. So even though there is a group of industry who have committed to co-managing the contractual public-private partnerships, they do not have any sort of monopoly to go for the calls. Anyone, absolutely anyone, can come in and participate in one of the open calls and will be treated as an equal in the competition for funding. We are looking for, the last slide, very, very important, and it's perhaps one of the areas which needs quite a bit of improvement to prove the value of the contractual public-private partnerships and other sorts of partnership, such as JTIs, for those of you who know that, the Joint Technology Initiatives. Industry commitment for leverage and further investments is actually absolutely key. It's one of the critical things we're looking for in assessing the program. It's one of the critical issues which actually our politicians look for. Are you succeeding in bringing in private investment into the program by spending R&D money? Next slide, please. Here you see the list, and if you know the list, then that's great. And if you don't know the list yet, then I do suggest you do have a look at it. It's the current public-private partnerships and the institutionalized PPPs. That's I used a different acronym just now, the Joint Technology Initiatives. And these are all ways of reserving a budget for that topic area. And we're studying these at the moment to see if we want to continue them in this form, or whether we continue them in a slightly different form, or whether we do something else. This is all in discussion now. And if you participated again in the Info Day, then you will know that this is a topic on the table. We really would welcome your input, and go to our site, send your comments. We do. It's called midterm review. If you Google that, you should land in the right place, and then you can send your comments to that. We really do need your input on what works and what doesn't work. Next slide, please. And here is a participation overview. Again, I'll leave it up for a couple of seconds. I think it explains itself. I won't particularly comment on it. If you found yourself or not. Next slide, please. The expected impact, very important. We do try to assess our programs on the effect they have in the marketplace or for companies, beneficiaries to what happened? You've blended me in. Somebody's got to refresh their browser. Who's do we have to do something? Cecilia Mata, is everything okay? Okay, sorry about that. And you'll see that these are some of the main impact. Why am I hearing that? Do I hear myself? No. This is the way in which we actually do the assessment, by looking at how well take-up, how well technology moves forward, how well take-up happens, which experimentation facilities we have, and are they good? Yeah? Do we have a good customer base for them, and how many newcomers we reach? The next slide, please. The technology readiness levels, again, I'll leave this with you. It's based mainly on an OECD scale, which has been developed, and you can read much more on this if you want to, from an economic viewpoint, on the justification of this particular scale, but it's the one we use. Next slide, please. Now, we're coming to some of the principles that was, if you like, the main policy context. Well, already the TRL slide was a little bit more practical. Now I'd like to go into some of the basic principles around the new work program. Some of them will be new, some of them will be not. We just like to repeat and remind that certain characteristics haven't changed too much. In this call, and in all of the calls affected by this work program, it is open data by default. So if you say nothing in writing your proposal, it will be assumed that you will make all experimental data available to everyone in the consortium and also within the Horizon 2020 community. How that's done, through which websites, etc., that's part of the mechanics of your project. But the open data by default is a new characteristic. You can, if you can justify, for commercial reasons, for other reasons, you can ask not to have open data. But we do try and discourage it because this is public money. You are doing research in the public domain when you work with Horizon 2020. So open data should actually be the basic principle. And if we are looking at exceptions, then we need to know why. Industrial SME data is it's another approach to data, if you like. Data is becoming a key to new business, a way of assessing what the marketplace is doing, enabling the company offering either services or products to adjust much more quickly to its customer base. So data, big data, is a core item at the center of what we do in the future. With the Commission, we're very conscious of that. If you go to the digital single market legislation proposed in the course of last year, you'll see that there were a number of very, very important, a number of, if you like, legally oriented documents, policy oriented documents on how to manage data in the future. It is a hot topic at the moment. Please be conscious of that. Policy background digital sync, well, that's what I just said. In fact, there's more, because in fact, digitizing is not just a European priority. Our member states, Germany, France, Spain, UK, others, are very, very active in this area. And the topic areas of what are called industrial platforms, so ways to promote, digital innovation hubs, so ways to bring in SMEs, consolidate around the digitizing topic and improving skills and working on standards. These tend to be, actually, if you look at Industry 4.0 in Germany or Usine du Futur in France, you'll see very similar type of structure. And in fact, the Commission is our colleagues in DG Connect are making quite a large effort to bring all this together. The European Cloud Initiative and the European Science Cloud are on the way, promised by 2020. And data economy, platform economy, new ways of addressing business via data, we're very conscious that this is a reality. And projects that display this, we have quite a few already. Also in the manufacturing, I'm personally aware of those in the manufacturing area. I'm sure that in other areas too. A very crucial element of future business models. We will be watching that in future assessments. So if you are going that way, bring it out in your proposals. It will be a benefit. Next slide, please. Open innovation testbeds. Now, you will see, now let me say a few words. Actually, the order's probably not quite right here. Can you give me the next slide and then we go back afterwards? Next slide. Next slide. This is, okay. Next slide. And I'm going to ask you to go back again. Next slide. Next slide. No, next. Forward. Forward. Now, here we go. This is the one I wanted to catch first, and then I'll be going back to the other ones. Here you see in the first block what was actually the main takeaways from the evaluation. That the NMBP part of the program, including the CPPPs, the public-private partnerships, they actually showed a strong industry participation and feedback. This was sort of asking industry, do you find it relevant? High relevance. So it looks good as the direction. We can improve, but it looks good. SME newcomers in quite large numbers, so this is very encouraging that we're part of the SME ecosystem. Industry relevant demonstrators, quite high TRLs, we have those. They take a lot of money, but if they're doing the proper job, this is very encouraging. Most projects intending to take results to the market, so of course intentions is only the first stage of actually doing it, but we have a very high number there. Contributions to sustainable development and climate action, as you know, a very, very important underpinning goal in all of the areas we work in, and we're looking quite good there as well. And looking, if you like, the assessment also clearly stated that what has actually happened through individual projects, if you look at them as a collection of projects, as a portfolio, it really does seem that there is a good contribution, of course not the only one, but a very good contribution to new developments such as the Fourth Industrial Revolution. In the current work programme, what is new? First of all, we have fewer topics. We also have a different structure. I'll come to that in a minute. We have fewer topics through the structure. We have the open innovation testbeds, which there was a slide on already. I'll go into that in more detail. We are piloting, if you like, this is also a little bit of a look into the past, because in the past 50% was one of the standard funding rates in earlier framework programs, and we're returning to it a little bit more to increase industrial leverage. You recall that I mentioned that as one of the issues which we have. More weight on Fourth Industrial Revolution, meaning all of the aspects around, so the concept of the Industrial Revolution is perhaps not just the technology and what actually or even what happens on the shop floor in the material and the hardware, but it's also very much part of what happens to the people, how the people go with this, and how the process itself evolves, how much integration into supply chains, how flexible is the production process, how flexible is the supply chain together with production. So more weight on looking at future structures, and sustainability will have a key role. Next slide, please. Next forward, yes. This is what I wanted to come with. So the new structure of the work programme has just three main parts. Foundations for Tomorrow's Industry, which focuses very much on the testbeds and the ecosystem. Transforming European Industry, which is mostly what you've known as Factory of the Future, but not only, it also includes the biotech part of the work programme. And Industrial Sustainability, which is the PPPs, mainly PPPs, Spire and energy efficient buildings, but also some other work around sustainability. So you can see we've introduced a structure which we didn't have in this way in the past. It was more focused around the PPP frame, and I mean, I hope that it's evident that this is something that fits very well indeed with the policy presentation I gave you. So you have foundations as structural ways forward for the SMEs, for our community building, if you like, for industry to enable technology to develop more strongly, to give access to those who don't have it, transforming European industry. The changes, the fourth industrial revolution changes, not just the technology changes, but also how people work with robots, skill sets you need, all of these things, and then finally coming to the sustainability set of activities, circular economy, sustainable development goals, the contribution which industry must make and find its way to a more sustainable existence. So we think that fits well, and that is now the core. So if you can, I think in writing your proposals, it would not be a bad thing, I mean, not only to actually specify the topic, but to spend a little bit of time looking at the way your proposal actually fits in these, if you like, greater objectives. The deadlines I list below, I won't read them out. You can read them also in the web program. I suppose that's quite self-evident. Now I would like to whoever's pushing the button for the slide projecting to go back more or less 6 or 7 slides to where we... Here, yes, thank you very much. So, and now the innovation testbeds. That, as I mentioned, this is the main core of the foundations, and it is about physical facilities. I think the second bullet says it very well indeed, so I'll just read it. Physical facilities offering technology access and services to advance from validation to a laboratory. What does that actually say? I can't. Okay, and for TRL4 in a laboratory, that's right. Laboratory TRL4 to prototypes in industrial environments. So going from lab to industry. And this is this is actually the core, and they are physical facilities open to everyone. So you build it, and they need to be open to SMEs. Of course, they will have a physical location, but sometimes, if something's specialized and it's a particularly good test bed, you will find, through the collaborative mechanism, ways in which it's perhaps very attractive to actually spend some time. If you're based in Denmark, maybe you'd like to spend some time in Spain at that particular test bed for your particular speciality. So they should also allow that sort of access. How many test beds funded? You'll find that in the work program. 20 test beds for materials development and upscaling, 4 test beds for materials characterization, 4 test beds for modeling, and the already established nano safety platform, which is a crucial area accompanying the nanotechnology program, belongs also in this category. We do think that testbeds, this is the start of something which will continue, and perhaps we'll have a whole network of testbeds evolving over time, of course, because technology moves forward. But this is an innovation infrastructure where we think we can really parallel almost something we already see in the large research infrastructures, the synchrotrons and the large facilities for doing scientific experimentation. Here, this is something for doing technological experimentation, but also to incubate and upscale SMEs working in that particular area. So this is the start of, we hope, something big. Next slide, please. Now, Important here, you can see the test beds. I won't talk any more about those. But the innovation prizes, and there are 2 innovation prizes in this call, and they are for innovative batteries for electrical vehicles, for EVs, and affordable high-tech for humanitarian aid. So if you have developed, within or without the program, it doesn't matter. If you have developed an innovative battery and you put in for the competition on the prize, there will be a deadline, I don't know it by heart, but you'll find it in the web program, and or for affordable high-tech for humanitarian aid, then you can stand to gain that prize. It will be, of course, competitive. At the moment, the idea is there's only one winner, but sometimes in these things you can also share prizes if you have very, very good entries. So this is the prize scheme in this area, in these 2 areas. Next slide, please. I think I've spoken quite a lot about the role of low carbon, climate resilient sustainability. Most of you will know this. Go on. Next slide, please. And here we have naturally all the areas which naturally will contribute to a sustainable. So this is a grouping, if you like, of several topics across parts of Horizon 2020 that, if you look at them together, actually fit quite neatly to the focus area, that is a sustainability program, embedded, if you like, in the Horizon 2020 program, including, naturally, the climate societal challenge, transport and energy, of course, food security, sustainability in agriculture, very crucial issue, also in the bio-based industry that comes out of it. Space plays an important role in Earth observation for climate. And of course, I left us till last, industrial technologies. Industry itself has to get cleaner and cleaner through technology and through any way it can. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So, and we were here already. So next slide, please. And we saw this one too. Next slide, please. Sorry, can you go back? Just go back to the last one. Yeah, at the bottom. What I didn't mention specifically is, I mentioned it right at the beginning, the open to the world. And you'll see that an effort to ramp up a little bit in this area of cooperation internationally. We do have an EU-China flagship initiative in biotechnology. One of the questions, I'll answer it straight away, which was asked in the questions you sent us, was, do you have to have a Chinese partner? The formal answer is no, because if you don't have one, you are still formally eligible. However, if you have 2 equal projects and one does have a Chinese partner and the other one doesn't, the one with the Chinese partner wins. It is an advantage to have a Chinese partner, and we do strongly encourage you to have a Chinese partner. That's the only case in which we do an open to the world flagship in this call, but watch this space, maybe there'll be more later. Next slide, please. Now, I think there's probably not much point me going through all of the topics. You can read them, and the slides are very informative. And me reading what's in the work program, that probably doesn't help very much. So I'm going to go through all of these without actually speaking about them. So if you can please step through the next slides, as I say, step, and leaving each one for maybe 2 minutes just to read. Step. Not even 2 minutes. Step. Bit of a longer side, leave it up a bit longer. Step. 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 I think that's the last one step. No, wrong. And you note, of course, the years table, but I think you're familiar. This is the same scheme we had for the last two work programs, which were biannual. This one, of course, covers 3 years, so it's a little bit extended. As we had for the past work programs, there may be some adjustments, so please do watch our space. You can already start planning for your proposals in 2019-2020, but do watch the space carefully because there may be small changes, but they won't be major changes. We might add something in, we may move things around a little bit, but on the whole, it's. I don't think there are any cases where we actually took something out in any of the adjustments. We did change a little bit some of the money thresholds, and we did add some other items in. But in general, I think if a topic is in there for 2019 or 2020, chances are very high, close to 100%, but not quite, that it will stay there. Next, please. So, and most of you will already know where to look, and most of you already are in touch with Marta and Cecilia and your national CCPs, so, but just in case you don't, here are your contacts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yanis, for this very interesting and very clear presentation. We will now open the Q&A part of the session. We will start with the questions received in the registration form. So, Marta.
Yes, and let me say we have received a lot of questions. We will try to show them all, and if some of them will not have the answer here today, I'm sure we will prepare the answers and give it afterwards to you. So, Yanis, are you ready to start replying to the questions?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, so the first group of questions is about the test beds that are quite new topics. So please try to reply to these questions.
Now, in the testbed proposals, you do have to establish a testbed in at least 3 member states or associated countries with offering access to facilities. So that is a very important characteristic. Otherwise, the rules are as for normal proposals. The phrase 3 different labs, I mean, they're physical locations. They can be connected and use each other's facilities remotely, if that works, if it's data access or things like that. So how you actually network the 3 physical access locations is up to you, and from technology to technology it will be slightly different, I think. So these labs have to be, I mean, you will define the collaboration model yourself. I think you don't need to, you should know it from the logic. But I think the criterion, the most important criterion is that you are giving access in the 3 country locations by some means, and how much you actually physically locate in each of the 3 is maybe up to you. You need to define the architecture quite well. I would recommend that in the proposal you give this quite a lot of attention, how you actually network the labs. So the answer, yes, you must locate in 3 different countries, but the rules on how many partners you have in the proposal don't change, yeah, and who the partners are. That actually doesn't change. What is the definition of a test bed? I'm sorry, I'm going to read on this one. Open innovation testbeds are entities offering access to physical facilities, capabilities, and services required for the development, testing, and upscaling of nanotechnology and advanced materials in industrial environments. And the reason why it's just nanotechnology and advanced materials, because that's the part of the work program, part of the technology which we're applying these to. Of course, we could apply them to something else in the future. That is the definition. I'm sure Karen will be able to send a copy of that. That's, I'll make a note. Okay. Next, please. The next one. So, okay. My list isn't quite the same as yours, but never mind. There's no cascade funding to fund the code. That's right. We will not know which partners will be most requested. How to manage the budget of the project? Well, if you are funding outside Horizon 2020, or in fact outside the work program, is rather, we cannot really manage it. The beneficiary group, so the consortium, or the beneficiaries who, the investors or other industry, which might be providing cascade funding after the project, needs to be involved in your planning. And you need to plan with our project and in what happens afterwards. Now, it of course will be an advantage in the evaluation if the evaluators have visibility on your plans, because of course it increases the credibility that you will have good leverage. But actually you're asking how to manage it. Well, I'm sorry, but the management of the proposal, but also of other related projects, including other related financing, at the end of the day is yours. We won't manage other people, your budget for other parts of the budget. So I'm sorry you're going with or without advisors. It will be important that you have the capability to manage that process yourselves. But once you have that in hand, making it visible in the proposal is an advantage. And the next question, more information about testbeds management organization. That's a rather general question. And again, it's not in the list I have. So we haven't prepared an answer for it. So I'm going to pass simply because it's very general.
Okay.
Maybe you should go the organization asking the question. Maybe you can go to the Q&As, the testbed Q&As, because there is a FAQ, a frequently asked questions page. And Karen, maybe we should send the link to the FAQ, and then on this one, yeah.
Yes,
now
indeed.
I have lots of other questions, but they're not the ones you were showing. So for example, can you please explain what is the situation for UK participants when participating in EU programmes after the 29th of March 2019? Any idea what would be the outcome in case of no deal? Well, I'm afraid we don't have an answer for you simply because the deal will be the answer. As you can probably hear, I'm connected a little bit to this question, and the answer is that when Britain is out, it's out, and until it's out, it's in. And therefore, any proposal evaluated with a UK participant will be treated equally, assessed equally, and can be given funding. But what happens when, if you like, halfway through the project, there is a situation where the UK participant can no longer be funded, should that be the case, because we don't know that it will be, If you look at associated countries, there is a scheme for many, many countries whereby it's very easy to participate, for the country beneficiaries to participate. Maybe that will be the case with the UK, but that, I'm afraid, is a matter for the negotiation, and we can't predict it. I'm very sorry about that. Do you have any more questions to put up, or I go through this list?
You can go through that list.
Yeah, I go through the list. We've got a number of questions on China. One of them was I think I answered it when giving the presentation, and that is, do you have to have a Chinese participant? No, you don't. Formally, you are eligible. Your proposal will be evaluated if you do not have a Chinese partner in those two topics, the two biotech topics. But please be aware that Chinese proposals may well be at an advantage if they are equal in their strength to your proposal. There's another one on China here. Interested in the administrative and financial steps to include China. Well, I'm afraid that there will be some. Again, in the second half of November, we're still putting together a FAQ on this. So you will have a little bit more information on this a bit later on. But in fact, the Commission is not doing so much facilitation in this. We're a little bit making the assumption that in the topic areas chosen, there is already a Chinese cooperation between some institutions, and that will be the core for future projects, and then we spread it as it grows. So we're assuming that from the Chinese side, the Chinese will be very conscious of this. There have been recent missions to China of colleagues who have been talking to the Chinese about this. So we do anticipate that the Chinese side will have a model of how to participate. For us, the model is known. It's as with most associated countries. And so for the moment, I don't have a more detailed answer for you, but there will be frequently asked questions on this, which is in construction. So let me look through the list again. Some of the questions, I'm skipping over them, are actually asking for things like the call dates and things like this. Please do look carefully at the work programme. The information is in there. For those of you experienced at this, it shouldn't be hard to find. If you're coming at this new, I'm sure your NCPs will be able to help you actually negotiate through the exercise. Yeah, thank you, Karen. Now I've got a series of more specialized questions on particular topics. Is there any topic or call for power electronics? The answer is there is no topic on power electronics in our call. And in fact, there was a power electronics call just in 2016. So we will not have another one in this call. However, be aware that the ICT program does also cover power electronics in some applications. So please do look at our colleagues' ICT program for power electronics. But for the moment, we're not thinking of continuing what we did in 2016 into the next period. Does the Nmbp two questions specifically on Nmbp 22 biotech and medical, and in fact it asks, does the topic foresee preclinical trials in small animals? And the answer is no. But if the proposers consider it that it's an important part. It's not excluded as such. And of course, you have to look carefully at the ethics page, which is standard for all project proposals. You do have to, on questions like this, you do have to make sure you're doing such things in the way that they should be done. Also, Nmbp 22 requires a TRL5. Does this mean only in vitro testing or also in vivo testing? And the answer is no, not only. Yeah? Although it does not exclude both whenever applicable and needed. So you can, but there is no exclusion. Now, I'm not a biologist, so I don't know if there is another path to testing. But but the answer I have been given is that the answer is no. Another specific topic question I have is Nmbp 30 on battery technology. In case our proposal is about metal air battery, should we have to care about the lithium-ion battery issues such as thermal runaway? What we intend, the answer, what we intend with the call is to promote and guarantee safety of new battery chemistry that will be developed. So if you anticipate thermal runaway problems, then you must include a discussion of how you achieve safe design. So safety should be a topic in cases where you see this as an issue. Of course, if the evaluators will consider that it is an issue and you haven't looked at it, then of course you may not do so well in the evaluation. So really, I would say you need to look at this as an expert yourself on how crucial safety issues will be. So the next question, we have problems identifying application areas that can meet the combination of expected impacts given by topic Nmbp 32. It is hard to find applications with distributed sensor networks that could reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by 40% or more. Could you give us some typical applications that the Commission has in mind? The smart materials for energy harvesting, this is the answer. The smart materials for energy harvesting are new materials that can harvest energy through a structural sensor network or even through other types of structural smart processes that can lead to energy harvesting. These materials can be pavement tiles, parts of a vehicle, structural parts of a house, and much more. So, energy harvesting through materials. These type of materials can combine their energy harvesting properly with energy storing and work as energy sources, compensating in less use of other energy sources, and that's where you get the 40%, that's where you should be getting, looking for the 40% reductions. So I hope that gives a good explanation of it. Doing this in a one-way web conference is of course not ideal, because I'd like to ask the person who asked the question if that gave the answer. But we can enter, or through your NCP, please do follow up if you're not happy with the answer we gave. I'm going through my list. Is it strongly recommended for pilot actions to have an industry, and most specific an SME, as coordinator? In the case of both Factory of the Future pilots and the test beds, focusing on uptake of new materials and tech, industrial involvement is of very, very, very high importance, but we are not prescribing whether it's SMEs or large industry. So there will be no advantage, if you like, in terms of the proposal as a single proposal. However, I mean, we'll be looking really for the expertise of of a company able to pick up the activity and do it best. There is no specific requirement to have an industrial. Also, yes, there's no specific requirement in the rules. So, if it's an RTO, a research and technology organisation, which is the coordinator and has taken the coordinator role, that's still eligible. You're still okay, but you do need to show that the industrial participants will be will have the main gains from undertaking the activity. That you do have to show in your proposal. So, going to the next list. That was all on that one. So I've got one here on which TRLs are mostly aimed at in the calls for Industry 4.0 digitalization. So it's not, and especially if you look at items such as human-robot cooperation or skills, it's not so much that we're looking for TRLs, we're looking at ways to make the transformation work better. So I guess that in the evaluation that this will not be such a critical issue. The critical issue will be, will the proposal result in a better way of human-robot interaction? Will the proposal result in development of skills and spreading them widely? I mean, developing skills in a small group is much less attractive than disseminating skills and teaching skills across a larger group. So, in a sense, there are some, especially in the transformation part of the call, you will see that that actually TRLs may not be the main criterion, but you need to read the texts. If there is a TRL reference, take notice, but it's not in all cases, especially in transformation. So. I don't see another one apart from those asking specifically about call dates, when the calls will be open and things like this. I do not see. I mean, there were two questions which were specifically asked about funding new materials and non-transportable gases, higher added value chemicals. I'm sorry, we do not have answers to those. I do not have them now because the colleagues were not available. They're quite specialist questions, and but we've noted those two questions, and we will be coming back to you in writing. We'll send it to you, Marta, Cecilia, and maybe you can discover, or if you give us the mailing, we can mail directly to the people asking the question. So I think I have got through the main questions which you sent.
Perfect, Yanis. As I said, there were a lot of questions, and some of them are very, very specific. And as you could see, we have gathered all the questions that were sent to us in writing in the registration forms. And if you have not received your answer here live today, as Yanis said, we will compile all the answers in writing and we'll get back to you. Yanis, if I can ask one or two questions additionally that we have received from the chat tool, and we will not have much time for more questions since we are almost at the end of our session. But I've received a question that I would like to put to you. Do you expect new CPPPs in the coming years in industrial sectors which are not covered yet?
So I'll answer the question in two parts, if I can. First of all, just the first few words of the sentence, do we expect more CPPPs? Of course, as you know, the CPPPs and the joint undertakings do have a time limit. They end around about 2020. I think they have a slightly different date from Horizon 2020 simply because of the way that the formal process was done. A discussion is underway, and you will have, those of you at the Info Day will have experienced part of it, about partnership with industry. Are these the best instruments? They're quite good. The assessment has been that they are actually quite good instruments, but we are reviewing them critically. Can we do it better? And this discussion is still underway. So while there is a very good basis to argue in favour of keeping the CPPs, Factory of the Future, maybe moulded a little bit differently, energy efficient buildings may be expanded to more than just energy as a resource, or expanded to cover the context of the building, the district, and also underground. So a number of, there is thinking to re-scope a little bit maybe, but keeping the structure. But there is also a comparison. Is it better to do it as a contractual PPP through calls, or is it better to do it through a JTI, which is a legal entity separately? These reflections are still underway. Of course, they're being done in the open. So your comments, your feedback is very, very welcome. Your opinions on whether we should or we shouldn't. Would we have them in other industrial areas? If the tool is retained and it does have a logic, then, one example we've seen has been cybersecurity, where a new CPPP has been put on the road in order to cover, and it's interesting because it's not just technology. The cybersecurity CPPP includes many policy issues around cybersecurity, how to manage cybersecurity globally, not just in Europe. So we do have the potential to go into other areas. I am not personally aware that any specific area has been earmarked or identified, but if you have proposals, let us know. Write to us, write your papers, let us know.
Thank you. I think we have to all think about the future. Now we are already thinking about the future, and that reflections are very useful. I have another one about the China involvement. We have received lots of questions about the China involvement in Biotech 5. And although they ask for an explanation of the rationale for involving the Chinese partners, maybe that explanation can be given in more detail afterwards. But maybe you can answer two questions regarding this issue. How to define which Chinese teams to integrate, if there should be research teams or business teams, and if there is any specific threshold for Chinese budget.
We will have to come back to the threshold question, but my understanding so far is that there is not, because of course it's the Chinese budget. Yeah, it's not our budget. So we are actually, or am I wrong, Karen? We are not contributing to the from our side. The money comes from China. So actually, I'm not conscious that there is a threshold. But maybe we should look at this. Of course, if a proposal arrives and it's funded 99% from the Chinese, there needs to be a reasonable balance in terms of the project structure. Yeah, so it needs to look sensible. But I'm not aware of any administrative threshold or limit that has been set. But we will come back to you on that question just to confirm this answer. I think the answer on the team is expertise. You need to find the partners who can do the job. And I think with a view, the collaboration, if I recall, it's all below TRL 6, isn't it? Yeah. So it's nothing, there's no anticipation that the Chinese topics will actually be, going into the market within the next 2 or 3 years. So we would not put, I'm not conscious, but again, we'll verify that there is actually a constraint. You should go by the expertise of the Chinese team and not, and of course by our team, the European team, and not so much whether it's research or business.
Thank you. And a last one. Well, I have some others, but they are still too specific, and several questions about the test beds, but as you said, there will be published a FAQ, so maybe we will wait for that and now take the opportunity to do a different question. And it's regarding funding rates. All innovation actions will continue to have a 70% funding rate, with the exceptions of those that are indicated to have a 50% funding rate. Is this correct?
Right. That's correct.
Okay. So, thank you, Yanis, for your time. I'm sure you will send us the answers for all the questions. It's good to have this kind of collaboration. We will publish the answers in the NMP team website, and I'm sure European Commission can also publish these questions and join them to the FAQ they already have. And do you have any question you want to put, Sofia?
No, I think there were a lot of questions that were already answered today. It was an interesting discussion. You have anything more to say, Marta?
No, nothing from my side.
And you, Yanis, do you want to say something before we close for the event?
No, just good luck to everyone who's going to put in a proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Yanis. Thank you, Marta. We hope this event was useful. As Marta already mentioned, all the information will be uploaded in the NMP team website and in the YouTube channel. So if you want to revisit the presentation and the discussion, the questions and answers, it will be available soon. We will send an email with this information, and as soon as we have the FAQ published, we will follow up and send this information. Thank you all to be with us during this virtual event for clients. That's all from us today. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.